In a move that suggests behind-the-scenes wrangling with ABC, Sinclair announced late Friday that it would not air the Charlie Kirk documentary it had previously scheduled to run in Jimmy Kimmel Live's Timeslot. Instead, the company directed viewers to YouTube to watch the film and issued a statement saying, Sinclair will continue to air ABC network programming as scheduled in the late-night time period, with Kimmel preempted at the network level. ABC viewers nationwide, including those in Sinclair markets, were served a repeat of Celebrity Family Feud. Sinclair was one of two large station groups that had told ABC they planned to preempt Kimmel at the urging of FCC Chair Brendan Carr last Wednesday, coinciding with ABC's announcement that it would indefinitely pull Jimmy Kimmel Live from its lineup. In a statement last week, Sinclair said that suspension of the show at the network level was not enough, adding that it would not reinstate Jimmy Kimmel Live on its stations until formal discussions are held with ABC regarding the network's commitment to professionalism and accountability. Regardless of ABC's plans for the future of the program, the company continued, Sinclair intends not to return Jimmy Kimmel Live to our air until we are confident that appropriate steps have been taken to uphold the standards expected of a national broadcast platform. Contracts between networks and affiliates generally require stations to carry network programming at designated times, ensuring nationwide reach, while affiliates retain preemption rights for breaking news or sporting events. Preempting for other reasons could, at least in theory, raise breach of contract concerns. Sinclair was said to be planning to air the Kirk documentary in a time slot that would not interfere with network programming. In a blistering segment that blended legal analysis with a moral plea, John Oliver used his platform on HBO's Last Week Tonight to deliver a stinging rebuke to the Walt Disney Company and its CEO, Bob Iger, over the controversial suspension of Jimmy Kimmel Live on ABC. Oliver framed the network's capitulation to political pressure as a dangerous watershed moment for free speech in American broadcast media. The controversy, which has simmered for weeks, erupted after Kimmel's monologue addressed the far-right reaction to emerging details surrounding the alleged killer of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. Kimmel's commentary, which Oliver described as targeting the MAGA gang's response rather than Kirk himself, was met with immediate and fierce backlash from prominent conservative figures and politicians. This led to reported pressure from the Federal Communications Commission (FCC) and threats of regulatory scrutiny, culminating in ABC's decision to temporarily pull Kimmel's show from the air. Oliver devoted the main story of his Sunday night episode to dissecting what he called a turning point for free expression on broadcast television. Let's be perfectly clear about what is happening here, Oliver told his audience, his tone uncharacteristically grave. If the government can force a major network to pull a late-night comedy show off the air, and do so in plain view, using the flimsiest of pretexts, it can do a lot worse. This is a test case, and Disney is failing it spectacularly. He dismantled the foundation of the outrage, calling it a laughably weak pretext. Oliver argued that Kimmel didn't denigrate Charlie Kirk or make light of his killing, but rather pointed out that many on the right seemed desperate to weaponize Kirk's death. He added, it's an argument that's aged pretty well, given, everything that's happened to Kimmel since. A clear nod to the subsequent suspension. The host then pivoted to a practical and legal argument, insisting that Disney is not a helpless victim but a corporate behemoth with immense resources and a strong legal standing, citing legal precedent that prohibits government officials from coercing private parties to suppress protected speech. Oliver maintained that Disney would likely prevail in court if it challenged the FCC's pressure. He suggested that by choosing not to fight, Disney was making a cynical business calculation rather than a legally necessary one. This isn't about being forced into a corner. It's about willingly walking into it because the door is easier than the window, Oliver quipped. He warned that continued acquiescence would only embolden further attacks on speech across the media landscape, explicitly noting former President Donald Trump's subsequent social media posts calling for NBC to drop Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers. This is a playbook They will not stop with Kimmel. They will come for everyone until the only thing left on television is sycophantic praise and weather reports. Oliver's most pointed comments were reserved for Disney CEO Bob Iger. Looking directly into the camera, Oliver addressed Iger with a stark warning about the judgment of history. History's also going to remember the cowards, he stated. The people who definitely knew better, who understood the stakes, but still let things happen whether for money, convenience, or comfort. He concluded his segment with a direct and profane call to action, urging Disney to immediately reinstate Kimmel and draw a firm line against what he characterized as political bullying. When they come to you with stupid, ridiculous demands, instead of rolling over, stand up and use the only phrase that can make a weak bully go away, Oliver said, pausing for effect. FCACU. Make me. The segment has since gone viral on social media, reigniting debate about the responsibilities of corporate media giants in defending First Amendment principles against coordinated political pressure campaigns. As of now, the Walt Disney Company and ABC have not issued a public response to Oliver's monologue. In a monumental and fiercely argued segment that has since sent shockwaves through the media and political landscapes, John Oliver used his flagship HBO program, Last Week Tonight, to launch a full-throated and meticulously constructed defense of Jimmy Kimmel while issuing a damning indictment of the Walt Disney Company and its iconic CEO, Bob Iger. The nearly 20-minute main story dissected ABC's controversial suspension of Jimmy Kimmel Live, framing it not as an isolated corporate decision, but as a dangerous capitulation to government coercion that threatens the very foundation of free expression on broadcast television. The firestorm, which has dominated news cycles for weeks, originated from a monologue delivered by Kimmel on his ABC late-night show, addressing the swirling and often inflammatory online discourse following the tragic death of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. Kimmel focused his critique on the MAGA gang and what he characterized as their rush to weaponize the tragedy for political gain. While he explicitly did not mock Kirk or his death, his comments ignited an immediate inferno of outrage from right-wing media personalities, politicians, and their vast online constituencies. This backlash quickly formalized into tangible pressure. Key figures on the political right, including several FCC commissioners appointed by the previous administration, publicly decried Kimmel's remarks as incendiary and divisive, hinting at potential regulatory consequences for ABC during the network's upcoming license renewal processes. Faced with this threat, ABC's parent company, Disney, made the decision to temporarily suspend production and airing of Jimmy Kimmel Live, a move presented internally as a cooling-off period but widely perceived as an act of surrender to political pressure. Oliver devoted his entire main story to eviscerating this decision. From the outset, he established the high stakes. What we are witnessing is not a simple controversy. It is a turning point, Oliver declared, his usual comedic demeanor replaced by one of grave seriousness. This is a blatant, open-air test of whether a government agency can use the threat of regulatory punishment to force a private company to silence a voice it finds inconvenient. And if they can force a network to pull a flagship late-night show off the air and do so in plain view, using the flimsiest of pretexts, then they can, and they will, do a lot worse. The precedent this sets is terrifying.